How about you? Hilda, okay, she said. I am Hilda Hammerson, from the Madison Group. Post one-line summaries of your points and I'll set a speaker order. The conference page filled up. There was the official back channel at the bottom where the text was spilling by too fast for Perry to parse, and he knew that there were lots of unofficial back channels in use. 2. He covered the mic and sighed. He had nothing to say to these people. He didn't have any answers. Right. So who knows what we should do? The back channel went crazy. Hilda started green-lighting speakers with their flags up. Why are you asking us? Perry, you've got to run this. The voice was petulant and Perry saw that it was one of the Boston crew, which made him wonder what Jan was going to do when he discovered that Perry was doing this. The page pinkened and then sank into red. The other people on the call clearly thought this was BS, which was a relief to Perry. Hilda queued up the next speaker. We could set up information pickets at the gates to each ride, hitting people up for donations for our legal defense, get the press to cover it, and maybe we could bring in enough to fight all the injunctions. The pink lightened a little, went back to neutral white. Turned a little green. Perry slowed down the back channel a little and skimmed it. No way could we bring in enough, that's like 30 grand each. I get a couple hundred people here in the morning and that would mean $150 each. No, it's totally doable. We can raise that easy, just set up some PayPals and publicize the shit out of it. The next speaker was talking. What if we got the maintenance bots to break open the doors and carry the ride outside where everyone can see it? Bright red. Dumb idea. Perry broke in. I am worried that when people show up it'll provoke some kind of confrontation with the law. It could get ugly here. How can we keep that cooled out? Green, that's totally got to be our top priority. Hilda said. Next speaker. Okay, so the best way to keep people calm is to tell them that there's an alternative to going nuts, which maybe could be raising money for a legal defense. Greenish. What about finding pro bono lawyers? What about the ACLU or F? Greener. The back channel filled up with URLs and phone numbers and email addresses. Okay, time's running out here. Perry said. You guys need to organize a call around to those orgs and see if they'll help us out. Pass the hat at your rides. Try to find lawyers. Everyone keep reporting in all day, especially if you get a win anywhere. I am going to go take care of things here. Hilda aimed him good luck. Perry, you little kick-ass. Perry started to IM back, but a shadow fell across his screen. It was Jason, who ran the contact lens stall. He was staring at the two cop cars quizzically, looking groggy but growing alarmed. Perry closed his lid and got to his feet. Morning. Jason. Behind Jason were 5 or 6 other vendors. The sellers who lived in the shantytown and could therefore walk to work were always first in. Soon the commuters would start arriving in their beater cars. Hey, Perry. Jason said. He was chewing on an unlit cigarette, a disgusting habit that was only marginally less gross than smoking them. He tried toothpicks, but nothing would satisfy his oral cravings like a filter tip. At least he didn't light them. What's up? Perry told him what he knew, which wasn't much. Jason listened carefully, as did the other vendors who arrived. They re-fucking with you, man. The cops. Disney, all of them. Just fucking with you. You go ahead and hire a lawyer to go to the court for you and see how far it gets you. They not playing by any rules, they not interested in the law you broke or whatever. They just want to fuck with you. Suzanne appeared over Perry's shoulder. I am Suzanne Church. Jason. I am a reporter, sure. I know you. You were there when they burned down the old place, that was me. I think you rewrite. They re-fucking with you guys. I want to report on that because it might be that exposing it makes it harder to continue. Can I record what you guys say and do? Jason grinned and slid the soggy cig from one corner of his mouth to the other and back again. Sure, that's cool with me. He turned to the other sellers. You guys don't mind, do you? They joked and laughed and said no. Perry let out a breath slowly. These guys didn't want a confrontation with the cops. They knew better than him that they didn't win that one. Suzanne started interviewing them. The cops got out of their cars and stared at them. The woman cop had her mirror shades on now, and so the both of them looked hard and eyeless. Perry looked away quickly. The vendors with cars were pulling them around to the roadside leading up to the ride, unpacking merchandise and setting it out on their hoods. Vendors from the shantytown headed home and came back with folding tables and blankets. These guys were business people. They weren't going to let the law stand in the way of putting food on the table for their families. The cops got back into their cars. Kettlewell worked his way cautiously across the freeway, climbing laboriously over the median. He had changed into a smart blazer and slacks, with a crisp white shirt that hid his incipient belly. He looked like the Kettlewell of old, the kind of man used to giving orders and getting respect. "Hey, man," Perry said. Kettlewell's easy smile was reassuring. "Perry," he said, throwing an arm around his shoulders and leading him away. "Come here and talk with me." They stood in the lee of one of the sickly palms that stood by the roadside. The day was coming up hot and Perry's t-shirt stuck to his chest, though Kettlewell seemed dry and in control. "What's going on?" "Perry, well, we did a phoner this morning with all the ride operators. They going to work on raising money for the defense and getting pro bono lawyers from the F or the ACLU or something." Kettlewell did a double take. "Wait, what? They going to ask the ACLU? They can be trusted." "Perry, they impact litigators. They take cases to make a point, even when it's not in their clients' best interests. What could be more in our interests than getting lawyers to fight these bogus injunctions?" Kettlewell blew out a long breath. "Okay, table it. Table it. Here's what I've been pulling together. We've got a shit-kicking corporate firm that used to handle the Codicil business that's sending out a partner to go to the Broward County Court this morning to get the injunction lifted. They doing this as a freebie, but I told them that they could handle the business if we put together all the rides into one entity." Now it was Perry's turn to boggle. "What kind of entity? We have to incorporate them all, get them all under one umbrella so that we can defend them all in one go. Otherwise there's no way we going to be able to save them. Without a corporate entity, it's like trying to herd cats. Besides, you need some kind of structure, a formal constitution or something for this thing. You've got a network protocol, and that's it. There's money at stake here, potentially some big money, and you can run something like that on a handshake. It's too vulnerable. You'll get embezzled or sued into oblivion before you even have a chance to grow. So I've started the paperwork to get everything under one banner." Perry counted to 10. Backwards. "Landon, I am really thankful that you helping us out here. You probably going to save our asses. But you can put everything under one banner. You can just declare to these people that their projects are ours, of course they yours. They using your IP, your protocols, your designs. If they don't come on board, you can just threaten to sue them, Landon. Please listen to me. We are not going to effect a hostile takeover of my friends. They are equal owners of everything we do here. And no offense, but if you ever mention suing other projects over our IP," he made sarcastic finger quotes, "then we through having any discussions about this." "Okay." Kettlewell snorted air through his nostrils. "My apologies. I didn't realize that this was such a sensitive area for you." Perry boggled at this lawsuits against ride operators. "But I can get that. Here's the thing, Perry. Without some kind of fast-moving structure you going to be dead. Even if we repel the borders this morning, they'll be back tomorrow and the day after. You need something stronger than a bunch of friends who have loose agreements. You need a legal entity that can speak for everyone. Maybe that's a co-op or a charity or something else, but it's got to exist. You may not think you have any say over these other rides, but does everyone else agree? What if you get sued for someone's bad deeds in Minneapolis? What if some ride operator sues you to put you out of business?" Perry's head swam. He hated conversations like this. He didn't have any good answer for Kettlewell's objections, but it was ridiculous. No one from a ride was going to sue him. Or maybe they would, if he got all grabby and went mine and incorporated everything with him at the top. Hilda said he was the one they all looked to, but that was because he would never try to hijack their projects. No to all of it. We have to defend this thing, but we're not going to do it by trying to tie everyone down to contracts and agreements where I get to control everything. Maybe a co-op is the right way to go, but we can just declare a co-op and force everyone to be members. We have to get everyone to agree, everyone who's involved, and then they can elect a council or something and work out some kind of uniform agreement. I mean, that's how all the good free software projects work. There's authority, but it's not all unilateral and imperious. I am not interested in that. I'd rather shut this down than declare myself Pope Emperor of Rhineland. Kettlewell scrubbed his eyes with his fists. Up close, the lines in his face were deep sunk, his eyeballs bloodshot and hung over. You re-killing me, you know that. What good is principle going to do when they knock this fucking thing down and slap you with a gigantic lawsuit? Perry shrugged. I really appreciate what you've done, but I'd rather lose it than fuck it up. They stared at each other for a long time. Cars whizzed past. Perry felt like a big jerk. Kettlewell had done amazing work for him this morning, just out of the goodness of his own heart, and Perry had repaid him by being a stiff-necked dickwad. He felt an overwhelming desire to take it back, just put Kettlewell in charge and let him run the whole show. Just shrug his shoulders and abdicate. He looked down at the ground and up into the straggly palms, then heaved a sigh. Landon. I am sorry. Okay, but that's just how it is. I totally dig that you re-saying that we risking everything by not doing it your way, but from my seat, doing it your way will kill it anyway. So we need a better answer. Kettlewell scrubbed his eyes some more. You and my wife sound like you'd get along. Perry waited for him to go on, but it became clear he had nothing more to say. Perry went back to the cop cars just as the first gang of goths showed up to take a ride. Part 3. Sammy had filled a cooler and stuck it in the back seat of his car the night before, programmed his coffee maker, and when his alarm roused him at 3 a.m., he hit the road. First he guzzled his thermos of lethal coffee, then reached around and back for bottles of icy distilled water. He kept the windows rolled down and breathed in the swampy, cool morning air, the most promising air of the Florida day, before it all turned to steam and sizzle. He didn't bother looking for truck stops when he needed to piss. Just pulled over on the turnpike's side and let fly. Why not? At that hour, it was just him and the truckers and the tourists with morning flights. He reached Miami ahead of schedule and had a diner breakfast big enough to kill a lesser man, a real Fatkins affair. He got back on the road groaning from the chow and made it to the old Walmart just as the merchants were setting up their market on the roadside. When he'd done the Boston ride, he'd been discouraged that they kept on with their Whoville Xmas even though he'd grinched away all their fun, but this time he was expecting something like this. Watching these guys sell souvenirs at the funeral for the ride made him feel pretty good this time around. Their disloyalty had to be a real morale killer for those ride operators. The cops were getting twitchy, which made him grin. Twitchy cops were a key ingredient for bad trouble. He reached behind him and pulled an iced coffee from the cooler and cracked it, listening to the hiss as the embedded CO2 cartridge forced bubbles through it. Now here came a suit. He looked like a genuine Mighty Morphin power broker, which made Sammy worry, because a guy like that hadn't figured into his plans, but look at that, he was having a huge fight with the eyebrow guy and now the eyebrow guy was running away from him. Getting the lawyers to agree to spring the budget to file in every location where there was a ride had been tricky. Sammy had to fudge a little on his research, claim that they were bringing in real money, tie it to the drop in numbers in Florida, and generally do a song and dance, but it was all worth it. These guys clearly didn't know whether to shit or go blind. Now Eyebrow Man was headed for the cop cars and the entrance, and there, oh yes, there it was. 5 cars worth of goths, lugging bags full of some kind of homemade or scavenged horror memorabilia, pulling up short at the entrance. They piled out of their cars and started milling around, asking questions. Some approached the cops, who seemed in no mood to chat. The body language could be read at 150 feet. Goth. But officer. I wanna get on this re-day. Cop. You sicken me. Goth. All around me is gloom. Gloom. Why can't I go on my re-day? Cop. I would like to arrest you and lock you up for being a weird, sexually ambiguous melodramatic who's dumb enough to hang around out of doors, all in black, in Florida. Goth. Can I take your picture? I am gonna put it on my blog and then everyone will know what a meanie you are. Cop. Yap yap yap, little bitch. You go on photographing me and mouthing off, see how long it is before you in cuffs in the back of this car. Scumbag street vendors. Ha ha ha, look at these goth kids mouthing off to the law, that cop must have minuscule testicles. Cop, Don T make me angry, you wouldn't T like me when I am angry. Eyebrow guy. Can everyone just be nice? I'd prefer that this all not go up in flames. Scumbags, goths. Her. Shut up, look at those dumb cops. Ahahaha. Cops. Grr. Eyebrow. Oh, shit. 4 more cars pulled up. Now the shoulder was getting really crowded and freeway traffic was slowing to a crawl. More goths piled out. Family cars approached the snarl. Slowed. Then sped up again. Not wanting to risk the craziness. Maybe some of them would get on the fucking turnpike and drive up to Orlando, where the real fun was. The 4-lane road was down to about 1.5 lanes, and milling crowds from the shantytown and the arriving cars were clogging what remained of the thoroughfare. Now goths were parking their cars way back at the intersection and walking over, carrying the objects they planned to sacrifice to the ride and smoking clove cigarettes. Sammy saw Death Waits before Death Waits turned his head, and so Sammy had time to duck down before he was spotted. He giggled to himself and chugged his coffee, crouched down below the window. The situation was heating up now. Lots of people were asking questions of the cops. People trying to drive through got shouted at by the people in the road. Sometimes a goth would slam a fist down on a hood and there'd be a little bit of back and forth. It was a powder keg, and Sammy decided to touch it off. He swung his car out into the road and hit the horn and revved his engine, driving through the crowd just a hair faster than was safe. People slapped his car as it went by and he just leaned on the horn. Plowing through, scattering people who knocked over vendors' tables and stepped on their wares. In his rear view, he saw the chaos begin. Someone threw a punch, someone slipped, someone knocked over a table of infringing merch. Wahoo! Party time. He hit the next left, then pointed his car at the freeway. He reached back and snagged another can of coffee and went to work on it. As the can hissed open, he cooled DNT help himself, he chuckled. Then he laughed a full, loud belly laugh. Perry watched it happen as though it were all a dream. The crowds thickening. The cops getting out of their cars and putting their hands on their belts. A distant siren. More people milling around, hanging out in the middle of the road, like idiots. Idiots. Then that jerk in the car, what the hell was he thinking? He was going to kill someone. And then it all exploded. There was a knot of fighting bodies over by the tables, and the knot was getting bigger. The cops were running for them, batons out. Pepper spray out. Perry shouted something, but he could DNT hear himself. In a second the crowd noises had gone from friendly to an angry roar. Perry spotted Suzanne watching it all through the viewfinder on her phone, presumably streaming it live, then shouted again, an unheard warning, as a combatant behind her swung wide and clocked her in the head. She went down and he charged for her. He just reached her when a noise went off that dropped him to his knees. It was their anti-personnel sound cannon, which meant that Lester was around here somewhere. The sound was a physical thing, it made his bowels loose and made his head ring like a gong. Thought was impossible. Everything was impossible except curling up and wrapping your hands around your head. Painfully, he raised his head and opened his eyes. All around him, people were on their knees. The cops, though, had put giant industrial earmuffs on, the kind of thing you saw jackhammer operators wearing. They were moving rapidly toward Lester, who was in a pickup truck with the AP horn stuck in the cargo bed, wired into the cigarette lighter. They had guns drawn and Lester was looking at them wide-eyed, hands in the air. Their mouths were moving, but whatever they were saying was inaudible. Perry took his phone out of his pocket and aimed it at them. He could DNT move without spooking them and possibly knocking himself out from the sound, but he could Rodniking them as they advanced on Lester. He could practically read Lester's thoughts. If I move to switch this off, they'll shoot me dead. The cops closed on Lester and then the sour old male cop was up in the bed and he had Lester by the collar, throwing him to the ground, pointing his gun. His partner moved quickly and efficiently around the bed, eventually figuring out how to unplug the horn. The silence rang in his head. He could DNT hear anything except a dog whistle whine from his abused eardrums. Around him, people moved sluggishly. Painfully. He got to his feet as quick as he could and drunk walked to the truck. Lester was already in plastic cuffs and leg restraints, and the big Dead-eyed cop was watching an armored police bus roll toward them in the eerie silence of their collective deafness. Perry managed to switch his phone over to streaming, so that it was uploading everything instead of recording it locally. He faded back behind some of the cars for cover and kept rolling as the riot bus disgorged a flying squadron of helmeted cops who began to methodically and savagely grab, cuff, and toss the groaning crowd lying flat on the ground. He wanted to add narration. But he didn't trust himself to whisper, since he couldn't hear his own voice. A hand came down on his shoulder and he jumped, squeaked, and fell into a defensive pose, waiting for the truncheon to hit him, but it was Suzanne, grim-faced, pointing her own phone. She had a laminated press pass out in her free hand and was holding it up beside her head like a talisman. She pointed off down the road, where some of the goth kids who'd just been arriving when things went down were more ambulatory, having been somewhat shielded from the noise. They were running and being chased by cops. She made a little scooting gesture and Perry understood that she meant he should be following them, getting the video. He sucked in a big breath and nodded once and set off. She gave his hand a firm squeeze and he felt that her palms were slick with sweat. He kept low and moved slow, keeping the viewfinder up so that he could keep the melee in shot. He hoped like hell that someone watching this online would spring for his bail. Miraculously, he reached the outlier skirmish without being spotted. He recorded the cops taking the goths down, cuffing them, and hooding one kid who was thrashing like a fish on a hook. It seemed that he would never be spotted. He crept forward, slowly, trying to feel invisible and unnoticed, trying to project it. It worked. He was getting incredible footage. He was practically on top of the cops before anyone noticed him. Then there was a shout and a hand grabbed for his phone and the spell was broken. Suddenly his heart was thundering. His pulse pounding in his ears. He turned on his heel and ran. A mad giggle welled up in his chest. His phone was still streaming, presumably showing wild, nauseous shots of the landscape swinging past as he pumped his arm. He was headed for the ride, for the rear entrance, where he knew he could take cover. He felt the footsteps thud behind him, dimly heard the shouts, but his temporary deafness drowned out the words. He had his fob out before he reached the doors and he badged in, banging the fob over the touch plate an instant before slamming into the crash bar and the doors swung open. He waited in agitation for the doors to hiss shut slowly after him and then it was the gloom of the inside of the ride, dark in his sun-adjusted eyesight. It was only when the doors shivered behind him that he realized what he'd just done. They'd break in and come and get him, and in the process, they'd destroy the ride, for spite. His eyes were adjusting to the gloom now and he made out the familiar, unfamiliar shapes of the dioramas, now black and lacy with goth memorabilia. This place gave him calm and joy. He would keep them from destroying it. He set his phone down on the floor, propped against a plaster skull so that the doorway was in the shot. He walked to the door and shouted as loud as he could, his voice inaudible in his own ears. "I am coming out now," he shouted. "I am opening the doors." He waited for a 2 count, then reached for the lock. He turned it and let the door crash open as 2 cops in riot visors came through. Pepper spray at the fore. He was down on the ground, writhing and clawing at his face in an instant, and the phone caught it all. All Perry wanted was for someone to cut the plastic cuffs off so he could scrub at his eyes, though he knew that would only make it worse. The riot bus sounded like an orgy, moaning and groaning with dozens of voices every time the bus jounced over a pothole. Perry was on the floor of the bus, next to a kid judging from the voice who cursed steadily the whole way along. One hard jounce made their heads connect and they both cussed, then apologized to one another, then laughed a little. "My name's Perry." His voice sounded like he was underwater, but he could hear. The pepper spray seemed to have cleared out his sinuses and given him back some of his hearing. "I am Death Waits." He said it without any drama. Perry wasn't sure if he'd heard right. He supposed he had. "Goth kids. Nice to meet you, likewise." Their heads were banged together again. They laughed and cursed. "Christ, my face hurts," Perry said. "I am not surprised. You look like a tomato, you can see, lucky me." "Yup. I got a pretty good couple of whacks on the back and shoulders once I was down, but no gas, lucky you all right. I am more pissed that I lost the tombstone I brought down. It was a real rarity, and it was hard to get. 2. I bet it got tromped, tombstone, from the graveyard walk at Disney. They tore it down last week, and you were bringing it to add it to the ride. Sure, that's where it belongs. Perry's face still burned, but the pain was lessening. Before it had been like his face was on fire. Now it was like a million fire ants biting him. He tried to put it out of his mind by concentrating on the pain in his wrists where the plastic straps were cutting into him. Why? There was a long silence. Has to go somewhere. Better there than in a vault or in the trash. How about selling it to a collector? You know, it never occurred to me. It means too much to go to a collector. The tombstone means too much. I know it sounds stupid, but it's true. You heard that Disney's tearing out all the goth stuff. Fantasyland meant a lot to some of us. You didn't feel like it was. What, co-opting you? Dude, you can buy goth clothes at a chain of mall stores. We all over the mainstream, non-mainstream fight. If Disney wants to put together a goth homeland, that's all right with me. And that ride, it was the best place to remember it. You know that it got copied over every night to other rides around the country. So all the people who loved the old Disney could be part of the memorial, even if they didn't come to Florida. We had the idea last week and everyone loved it, so you were putting stuff from Disney rides into my ride, your ride. Well, I built it, no fucking way. He smiled and that made his face hurt. Dude, that is the coolest thing ever. You built that. How do you become the kind of person who can build one of those things? I am out of work and trying to figure out what to do next. Well, you could join one of the co-ops that's building the other rides, sure. I guess. But I want to be the kind of person who invents the idea of making something like that. Did you get an electrical engineering degree or something? Just picked it up as I went along. You could do the same. I am sure. But hang on a sec, you were putting stuff from Disney rides into my ride. Well, yeah. But it was stuff they torn down. Perry's eyes streamed. This didn't be a coincidence, stuff from Disney rides showing up in his ride and the cops turning up to enforce a court order Disney got. But he didn't blame this kid, who sounded like a real puppy dog. Wait, you don't think the cops were there because, probably. No hard feelings though. I might have done the same in your shoes. Oh shit. I am so sorry. I didn't think it through at all. I can see that now. Of course they come after you. They must totally hate you. I used to work there, they just hate anything that takes a Florida tourist dollar. It's why they built the monorail extension to Orlando Airport to make sure that from the moment you get off the plane, you don't spend a nickel on anything that they don't sell you. I used to think it was cool, because they built such great stuff, but then they went after the new Fantasyland. You can be a citizen of a theme park. Perry said. The kid barked a laugh. Man, how true is that? You've nailed it. Pal. Perry managed to crack an eye. Painfully, and catch a blurry look at the kid, a black Edward Scissorhands dandelion clock of hair. Eyeliner. Frock coat but a baby face with cheeks you could probably see from the back of his head. About as threatening as a smurf. Perry felt a sudden, delayed rush of anger. How dare they beat up kids like this? Death waits. All he wanted to do was ride a goddamned ride. He wasn't a criminal, wasn't out rolling old ladies or releasing malicious bioorganisms on the beach. The bus turned a sharp corner and their heads banged together again. They groaned and then the doors were being opened and Perry squeezed his eyes shut again. Rough hands seized him and marched him into the station house. The crowd susurrations were liquid in his screwed-up ears. He didn't smell or see. Either. He felt like he was in some kind of terrible sensory deprivation nightmare, and it made him jerky, so whenever a hand took him and guided him to another station in the check-in process, his wallet lifted from his pocket. His cheek swabbed, his fingers pressed against a fingerprint scanner. He flinched involuntarily. The hands grew rougher and more insistent. At one point, someone peeled open his swollen eyelid, a feeling like being stabbed in the eye, and his retina was scanned. He screamed and heard laughter. Distant through his throbbing eardrums. It galvanized him. He forced his eyes open, glaring at the cops around him. Mostly they were Florida crackers. Middle-aged guys with dead-eyed expressions of impersonal malevolence. There was a tiny smattering of brown faces and women's faces, but they were but a sprinkling when compared to the dominant somatype of Florida law. The next time someone grabbed him to shove him towards the next station on this quest, he jerked his arm away and sat down. He'd seen protesters do this before, and knew that it was hard to move a sitting man expeditiously or with dignity. Hands seized him by the arms, and he flailed until he was free, remaining firmly seated. The laughter was turning to anger now. Beside him, someone else sat. Death waits, looking white-faced and round-eyed. More people hit the floor. A billy club was shoved under his arm, which was then twisted into an agonizing position.